Hello and welcome back to the Nonprofit Investment Stewards Podcast. I'm Bob DiMeo. Always great to be joined by co-host Devon Francis. Today we'll hear about a topic that's just everywhere, and that's artificial intelligence along with technology. Importantly, we'll approach the subject from the perspective of a nonprofit. That means we'll delve into how you, nonprofit leaders, can use tech and AI to improve your organizations. Our expert will share and help examine the landscape, and then also provide some really useful tips. Devon, hope things are going well. May I ask you to introduce our guest?
Absolutely. I am so excited today that we have Ben Aase with us. Ben is a principal with CliftonLarsonAllen, and he's a member of the firm's national nonprofit leadership team. Over the course of his career, Ben has worked with a range of nonprofit clients focusing on the intersection of leadership, strategy, finance, technology, and operations. He currently leads CLA's nonprofit digital practice, which brings the firm's data, automation, and software capabilities to their many nonprofit clients. Ben earned his BA in economics from Colorado College and an MBA from the University of Minnesota. He serves as a board and investment committee member for the Cargill Foundation and has also served in many other volunteer capacities. Importantly, his wealth of experience in serving as the head of CLA's nonprofit digital practice make him the perfect guest for our topic today. So Ben, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Devon, and thank you, Bob. I'm happy to be here with you this morning, and just really excited to be a participant, having listened to this podcast over the past couple of years. So thank you.
Great. So Ben, why don't we start off with you sharing your story, help describe your career path and how you ultimately ended up with a focus on using data and tech solutions to help nonprofit organizations.
Yeah, sure. Sounds great, Devon. Let's go ahead and unpack that a little bit. I think I go back, in some ways, a bit of credit to my parents. I think I'm the son of a public school teacher, and my father, that was my mother's job. My father was a private college CFO and retired as a chief investment officer. During college, I grew up here in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area of Minnesota, headed out to Colorado out west for undergraduate school. During college, I didn't necessarily do traditional internships. I worked landscaping gigs when I was back here during the summer, making money and working hard. When college ended, I had that first sort of fork in the road decision. I was a passionate skier, debated the path of becoming a ski bum for a couple of years and sort of deferring, figuring the rest of life out, or coming back home here and getting a job and starting that career. So I ended up finding really, I think it was probably a financial analyst role within a small association management company back here in the Twin Cities. And it was actually mid-interview that I ended up pivoting. It was a young company and ended up pivoting to a different role, helping the owner think about how they could take their finance and accounting services to the K-12 market here in Minnesota. So that was my first sort of gig out of undergraduate school, kind of fell into this entrepreneurial opportunity. Spent about 5 years basically getting kind of on the job MBA and how to start a small business. And it was through that I developed a number of common clients and also mentors in common with CLA, the firm that I'm with now. So, you mentioned my bio. I went to night school, picked up an MBA part-time in entrepreneurship. I kind of figured out along the way that maybe the CPA pathway wasn't where my passion really laid, and joined CLA in 2005. So I've been with the firm now for about 19 years, kept one foot in that K-12 world, but I kind of started to explore some adjacent industries, so higher ed, nonprofit, spent some time with our state local government team. And, truth be told, growth just really kept creating opportunities for me here at CLA. So kind of started squarely in finance and accounting, moved into operations consulting, did a lot of strategy work, mergers, acquisitions. Fast forward to 2019, and our current chief solutions officer had gotten our board's buy-in and approval to really invest significantly in digital, in data and technology, and not just for CLA, but also as a service to provide to our clients. And that was really based on a couple of simple premises. Number one, most of our clients are sitting on a lot of data, but struggling to derive much insight out of it. And number two, a lot of our clients wrestle with manual processes that could or should be automated. So pretty simple premise. Now, just to kind of bring this full circle to today, it was really kind of a confluence of factors and decisions around 2021, 2022, which led our nonprofit industry leadership team to really raise our hand and say, we're going to put some leadership time and capacity and resource into really specializing that digital practice. So, since then, just in the past couple of years, we've grown into that and have either grown from inside or hired externally folks who are in similar roles to the one that I'm in now, whether that's in, maybe it's healthcare or state, local government, financial services, retail, any number of other industries that our firm serves. So that's kind of the short version of the long arc of the past 20 years that, really led me to this role here today.
And that's actually a great segue into having you describe a little bit about the landscape. And perhaps you can talk a little bit about pain points that nonprofit organizations are experiencing, and then perhaps how data and AI and just technology overall really can help mitigate some of those pain points.
Yeah, sure. That sounds great, Bob. So I think what I'll probably do is just to hit on kind of the top three as we're out talking to our nonprofit clients. The three most common things that in conversation with them, I hear them wrestle with when I ask them the same question that you asked me, what are you wrestling with as it relates to data and technology? So three things. Number one is probably lack of visibility into really timely, accurate, insightful data. And that's for a host of reasons that we can get into further, further in the conversation here. So that's probably number one. Number two, second most common, I'd say, is systems that don't talk to each other, right? So sort of absent an overall data strategy, maybe some policies, some procedures, some governance around use of systems and applications across a growing enterprise. You end up seeing lots of different systems in use, and they don't always play well together. So that's probably number two. And in the third, back to my first comment around sort of the foundation of our practice, we just see a lot of manual process and staff time spent trying to overcome really the first couple of symptoms and challenges there, right? So nonprofit leaders, nonprofit personnel tend to be driven by passion, strong sense of mission, and they're actually willing to, muscle through a lot of kind of day-to-day operational pain, whether that's struggling with Excel spreadsheets or, trying to extract data out of PDF documents. And, you then couple that with a lot of the labor shortage challenges and a lot of the labor inflation that we've been faced with the past few years. And there's just a real need for, and I think also an increasing appetite for automation for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with that statement. And not only in the nonprofit world, but one of the things that's perhaps a little more unique to the nonprofit world is that almost every nonprofit organization that we work with seems to be short-staffed. So the employees are stretched very thin. So can you share any stories about how nonprofit organizations can take advantage of modern technology, including AI, to help increase efficiencies?
Yeah, sure, Devon. Let's talk about just a few kind of use cases here. So I think a big one that our clients wrestle with is really automated versus kind of manual reporting, right? Especially as you think about the amount of time that folks in nonprofit organizations also spend interfacing with governance, right? Whether it's committee meetings, board meetings, external compliance and regulations, there's just a lot of reporting that our clients are responsible for. So if you can really move from a place where, let's say 80% of your reporting is kind of ad hoc, it's a little bit manual, team members are spending a lot of time producing reports and maybe 20% of it is automated. If you can get that flipped around to a place where, you're 80% automated and 20% ad hoc, it's a huge amount of time savings. You're going to get a lot better accuracy, less prone to errors. You can start to get to sort of real time versus episodic or inconsistent reporting. So that's probably, that's probably one of the top use cases here. And I think from a story standpoint, I think of Gleaner's Food Bank, actually. So I think of Gleaner's Food Bank down in Indiana, formed in 1980, really with the North Star of making sure that the 13% of people live in Indiana who are food insecure or need access to food, that they get food assistance and food security. And think about whether it's a food bank or other type of nonprofit, and the kind of demand that they saw really spike during COVID, especially in the last 3-4 years here, and what that means from being able to operate really the business side of the organization. 300,000 square foot warehouse, basically a transportation and logistics business, with a food mission attached to it. And we were able to work with Gleaner's Food Bank to, build them a data warehouse, and ultimately then layer on top of that a lot of the real-time reporting that enabled them to be able to, make sure that the food was getting where it needed to be, that they were able to measure and really report out on outcomes. And again, basically just keep operations scaling with growth, as they really took off over the past few years here. So that's probably, number one. I guess as I sort of start to shift a little bit into the artificial intelligence realm, for education institutions, organizations, whether that's private independent schools, public schools, on into higher education, maybe it's using predictive analytics to really understand student matriculation patterns. And also, as you think about the pressures on the educational business model, tuition, student financial aid, disruptions to overall higher education business models, if you can use artificial intelligence and some of that predictive analytics to be able to understand, which students might be most at risk of discontinuing school, leaving the institution, that can have significant impacts, both in terms of outcomes for the students in their lives, and also outcomes for, the business model of the educational institution. So we have worked with some clients in helping them develop some of those types of solutions.
Yeah, there's so much great potential really across the nonprofit landscape.
There is.
And of course, one of the most crucial functions of a nonprofit organization is the ability to fundraise. Can you think of a way that improved technology or AI can help with fundraising capabilities?
Yeah, really good question, Devon. Thanks. Particularly as you think about some of the trends in the last couple of years around giving, which I know have been a little bit challenging, certainly in certain pockets of our client base. And also, I guess just as anecdote, a lot of the surveys that we see and also just in direct communication with our clients, it's interesting that fundraising and development teams, maybe not surprisingly, are often some of the biggest tech and sort of data advocates inside an organization. Probably just recognizing they need those tools to be able to engage with donors, et cetera. So I think, at its most basic, I think that some of the automated outreach and, again, kind of back to the student example, predictive analytics to be able to understand donor churn patterns can be a pretty powerful place to start. And so if I think back even to the Gleaner story, in that situation, we're able to help them put into place some tools that it seems simple, but can make a big difference to be able to prompt their fundraising and development turn around when to maybe nudge a donor or when to nudge a volunteer. That's going to have a pretty significant impact on increasing that donor retention. So I think for them, they were probably hovering around 30 to 40% recurring donors year over year. And with some of those technology tools, and again, nothing that fancy, just some basic stuff applied over a strong data set, and they were able to nudge that retention rate up, I think north of about 50%. So that's one. I guess the second place where we're seeing AI really kind of come into prominence is just in tools to be able to help write grants, right? So, most people have certainly have heard quite a bit about ChatGPT or similar sort of GPT content creation using large language models to be able to, let's say, get 80% of the way there in the way of work product. And then be able to use, human intervention review, customization for kind of that last 20% mile. So we're seeing a lot of both products, coming out into the marketplace, specifically geared toward grant writing. And I think we're also starting to see, conversely, on the grant making side, so using some AI and automation tools to be able to, really kind of accelerate proposal review, summarize key points, align them with programs. So that's the other place where I think we're really starting to see AI start to put some fuel in the engine of fundraising and development.
So Ben, those are great use cases, and I think that can get nonprofit leaders excited about AI and technology and such. And it's funny, I saw or read a stat recently about how you have an organization that is basically using AI to model the world and weather patterns around the world, and that they will, in short order, be able to increase the predictability of weather patterns by 3,000%, right? And you hear that and you get excited. But truth is, like, some people are excited about AI, some are intimidated about AI and related technologies. What advice do you have for nonprofit leaders on that front?
Yeah, that sounds good. Let's I'll get to the AI part, but let's even just start with sort of some of those fundamentals. Because it's easy to jump there, but the reality is you got to crawl before you can walk, before you can run, and really to kind of make use of some of those tools, which are amazing. To your example there, you got to do a little bit to make sure that you got the house in order, the foundation strong. So, I mean, number one, what I would tell leaders is, number one, be clear about what matters most and what you need to measure, because there's data everywhere. So getting clear about that, whether it's your KPIs or some other expression of that, just get clear about what matters most to your organization. I'd suggest find some way to sort of figure out your current state. So maybe that's getting a working group together, could be cross-functional, not a bad way to engage some members of governance if that feels appropriate. And really just honestly start by taking an inventory of sort of current state. It's amazing how powerful just putting in front of an organization, a catalog of their current data sources, where it's coming from, what it's for, who uses it, how powerful that can be to just sort of show, what exists today in the organization. Map out where you'd like to get to 1, 2, maybe 3 years out. That's likely going to include the need to do a little bit of data hygiene and data cleaning along the way. And then I guess as it relates particularly to the AI front, because I would agree, it's both exciting, it's also intimidating, it's difficult to make sense of. Be open about it. I'd say invite conversations among your team and your staff about it. The reality is that none of us know where this is going to go over the next several years. So be open about it. I would encourage setting up some testing environments for people to play with some of those tools. Obviously, be mindful of controls and policy and so on, but test it, have fun with it. And I think lastly, I'd just say, educate yourself too, right? So lifelong learners, take the time to really educate yourself about some of these tools, because the information is out there. It's very accessible. But I also recognize it takes time and effort on the part of leaders to take advantage of that.
That's helpful, Ben. So if we were to think out 10 years from now on the tech and on the AI front, What's your vision of the landscape as it relates to nonprofit organizations and nonprofit leaders?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, starting with the tech and AI front, obviously it's not going to go away. The speed of growth is probably just going to continue to kind of expedite. We'll always have that tension between controls and sort of what's possible. I do think that, if I look out 10 years, and maybe this is in part just a hope, but I think that we will start to see the mindset of nonprofit leaders really start to shift where, data and technology are really viewed as a true kind of strategic driver of mission impact within a larger proportion of organizations. So it's gonna keep going and keep growing, and yeah, that's what I'd probably say about that.
We can't ignore it, right? You
Nope.
got to hop on the train. It's leaving
Nope.
whether we like it or not.
Yeah, can't ignore it.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Ben. Thank you for everything that you've shared with us. Obviously, this is a really important topic for nonprofit leaders to be aware of. Before we let you go and get back to your busy day, let's learn a little bit about you as a person. So, where do you look to draw your inspiration and to fill your tank, whether it's reading, watching, or anything else?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, as I think about where I go to, refill, kind of re-energize and get going, definitely any time outdoors and time outside that I can spend. Spent a lot of my youth out in the woods camping, and I mentioned, headed west for college. Skiing is a passion of mine. I fortunately have been able to pay that forward to my kids. Most of my outdoor time and activities in general are as a dad. I've got 2 young kids and a wife and 2 dogs now, having just added a puppy. So lots of time outside for sure. I do love listening to podcasts like yours. Have introduced some yoga into my weekly routine about 5 years ago, which I've also found really beneficial. And then when I can, I did marry an English major. So I try to find time in there to make sure that I'm keeping up on whether it's journals or some good fiction as well.
That's great. You hit on everything that I love, the outdoors, puppies, and reading. So you get an A in my book. Well, thank you so much for your time today. This has been really wonderful, and we appreciate your expertise. And I know this is a topic we could talk about for hours. So maybe we'll have you on for a future episode. But in the meantime, thanks for having joined us today.
Sounds great, Devon. Thank you, Bob, Devon, for having me on here today. It was great to be with you.
Yeah, wonderful, Ben. It was great to have you on the show, and we'll include a link to you and your organization in the show notes as well. So AI and the use of technology, obviously it has far-reaching impacts. Some of the topics that Ben touched on, they really intersect with prior episodes on the show. I'm thinking episode 69, where we talked program evaluation with Shari Smith. And then a little more recently, Alton Woolagi, our colleague, was on episode 70, where he talked about trends and opportunities in AI from the investment perspective. So check those out if you want to dig a little bit deeper. So to all you good stewards, thanks for investing time to help your nonprofits prosper. We'll connect with you soon on the next episode.